Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan back here with you today on this Astrology, Human Design and Gene Keys channel. And today we're going to be talking about Human Design and Gene Keys Gate 19. And that is going to be the energy of Aquarius from 737 degrees of Aquarius to 1315 degrees of Aquarius. So this energy that we have here is, of course, as you can see at the beginning of the video, symbolized by the bird, the pelican. And so if you haven't seen my introduction video to this series where I combine astrology, human design, and the gene keys talking about the vision key bird, you can check out the introduction video. I'll post a link to that up above in the description box below, and then you can come back and watch this video so you can get a more comprehensive understanding of where I'm coming from here. Okay, so human design and gene key gate and gene key 19 moves from the shadow frequency of codependence to the gift of sensitivity, to the city or the highest destiny of sacrifice, the future human being. And of course the dream arc totem moves from the fear key of the tarantula to the life key of the camel, and then the vision key of the pelican. In the 64 I-CHING hexagrams, this hexagram is called approach, nourished by the underground lake. Orient oneself back to the eternal spring of vital life force within. In the CODON ring, this particular gene key is located in the ring of GAIA. It's associated with the amino acid ISOLEUCINE. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The programming partner of this archetype is Gene Key and Human Design Gate 33, and that's the archetype in the zodiac of Leo from 737 degrees to 1315 degrees of Leo. And the programming partner is going to be the point that's opposite on the wheel to this particular archetype, and it offers a balancing, complementary opposite energy to this particular energy that we have here. And in human design, this gate is connected to gate 49, forming channel 1949, the channel of synthesis, the channel of independence, or the channel of intimacy and connection. And this gate is located in the root, connected to the 49 in the solar plexus. Okay, beautiful souls, so let me know if you have this archetype. Do comment below, share with us your experiences with it. I have this archetype as my unconscious Venus in human design and the gene keys, so it's my SQ in the gene keys. It's like that point in the middle of your whole genetic profile, so it's connected to various different things in my chart. So this is a pretty important gate and gene key for me, as I also have the whole channel, the 1949 channel, and so I may be sharing some of my personal experiences with you guys in this video. So of course we're going to start off by looking at the bird, vision key bird of this particular archetype. And of course the bird is the pelican. So the pelican is an absolutely interesting bird for me. The first thing that of course you'll notice about the pelican is the pouch in their bills, which is actually used for catching large amounts of food in one go. A lot of people mistaken it for storing food, which the pelican doesn't really do that. It mainly uses that pouch to catch many food in one go. And the pelican has numerous adaptation skills that keeps it from injuring itself when they, they smack into the water to catch their food. For example, the air sacs under the skin around their neck and breast area infiltrate before the pelican hits the surface of the water, and their bill behaves also like an airbag, kind of like when you're driving a car, and then you're able to have that kind of protection. They have a really freaky way of yawning because their beak is, not only is it big, but it's also very adaptable and very flexible and stretchy, that their beaks actually stretch all the way to the back of their throat, and their throat kind of pushes against their beak. And that's a really interesting sight to watch with the pelican there. And with regards to the ancient beliefs and the cultures and their beliefs around the pelican, Back in the 17th century, the pelican was considered to be the ultimate representation of the sacrifice. Because in the story, a mother pelican would give birth to her chicks, but as her chicks begin to grow, they became kind of violent towards the mother. And even though she had selflessly cared for them, and somehow the chicks would try to peck out the eyes of the mother pelican and mutilate her. She didn't stop the kids necessarily, but she kind of eventually gets really angry and retaliates back by striking her young dead. But after 3 days, she regrets her actions and then pierces herself with her beak, allowing her blood to drip onto the dead youngs, and they were revived while she dies, having made the ultimate sacrifice for her children. So that's one story surrounding the pelican. The second story, I'm not sure where it kind of originated from, but the other story about the mother pelican is that in the legends, the pelican was living in a time of great famine. So the mother pelican would wound herself, striking her own breast with her beak to feed her young with her own blood to prevent the young from starvation as a form of sacrifice as well. So those are the two different stories surrounding the pelican, which are both really interesting with regards to the message of this gene key in human design gate, which is sacrifice, at the city of it. For over millenniums, the pelican has been a symbol of selflessness and sacrifice. It also has its rightful place amongst other noble animals, such as the lion, the phoenix, and other animals that represent moral virtue. So if you have this particular archetype in your chart, some of your traits are going to be that you are very resourceful to your own needs, just like the pelican that can grab several fishes at once, that can dive into the water, but yet its body is so flexible to survive that the beak becomes super stretchy when it's yawning. So it's a very resourceful type of an energy with regards mainly to material resources, keeping in mind that this gate is in the root in human design. So it's going to be about being able to gather money, resources, a home, and things that you need to feed your physical self. But it's also the resources that have to do with sexuality, linking it to the solar plexus. So we have kind of a sexual energy happening here. So, being able to have enough, food to seduce a partner, being able to have money to, court another person. That kind of an energy is what we see here as well. So having the resources to meet your own needs is going to be your trait, but also the ability to be able to meet other people's wants and needs, and being very sensitive to the feelings, the physicalities, the energies of the people around you. There's also a trait here of being sensitive to other realms, other dimensions, nature, plants, animals, being able to communicate with them, connecting with the realms of magic, for example. Diving deeper into this archetype, we're going to look at the shadow frequency of it, which is called codependence. So when we look at codependence, there's a particular relational dynamic to another person that fits we can say the term codependence. So if we look at the story of the mother pelican, the first story, for example, we see how the young was not treating the mother pelican correctly, even though she had selflessly taken care of them. But yet, the mother pelican didn't teach her young. She didn't instantly confront the young. She continued to let her young peck out her eyes until she finally burst with anger. So this is the dynamic of codependence. Generally, we have in a relationship between two people, any kind of relationship, family, friends, romantic partners, acquaintances, colleagues, we tend to have one person who kind of plays the more, we can say, assertive role in that relating dynamic, and kind of, we can say, sometimes abuse or manipulate or takes advantage energetically, emotionally, physically, financially of the other, who plays the more passive role. And if you have this, energy, you can be either the passive or the assertive at the shadow frequency of it. So the passive dynamic in this case is the one that enables the more assertive party to play out these toxic behaviors, which, if you really think about it, is not healthy for both people. Even the passive person in a codependent relationship is enabling the assertive person to continue to act out their shadow self, their traumas, their wounds, without really helping, but kind of allowing that to happen. So that type of an energy is a codependent relationship, and the passive party in this case usually has an underlying motivation for enabling the assertive party to continue that trait, such as some kind of need, material needs, emotional needs that they can't fulfill within themselves. So we're having this, if you think about the fear animal of this archetype, it's the tarantula. Think about the web of the tarantula and how codependence is like this web of need and, capturing another person, and we continue this spider web of unhealthy relating. But that's okay, because it's a shadow of this archetype, and a shadow is not bad. A shadow is something that we have to embrace before we can lift up the energy frequency of it. Collectively speaking, the idea of codependence stems from a consciousness in humanity that is below the level of independence. So it's the consciousness of dependence. And we can see how, we can say, outdated relationships of our past, we have this dynamic because in a typical marriage of between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, but usually it's the more traditional roles of men and women, and how the men had to play the role of the breadwinner in the family, while the woman had to depend on the man for material resources while she takes care of the kids and takes care of the home. And within that relating, despite the, I'm not saying that all relationships are going to have this, but there's going to be some level of that, where there could be, toxicity or unhealthy behaviors occurring, mainly with the assertive partner, with the man. But then the woman, because she can't really make her own money in the economy of the world of the past, she didn't really have that place in the world. She had to continue to stay with a man who may not be healthy for her, a husband who may not be healthy for her, because she depended on him for money. So this is an example of the ancestral imprinting of codependence that's come into humanity, we can say. And to give you an example of my own experience with this, having this as my unconscious Venus, so this is very relational for me. I was in a codependent relationship in the past where my partner was depending on me financially, but it was codependent because I was giving money to my partner for him to do, his own thing, to live his life, basically, to pursue his dreams and his goals. But the thing about it was that I was not really making that much money to sustain my own dreams and my own life, but yet I was giving that money away. So in this situation, we can see that the root of codependence is that you're giving something away. It's an illusion of sacrifice, that you're giving something away when you don't really have enough for yourself. You're giving something away when you don't even have enough for yourself. That is an illusion of sacrifice, which is part of the shadow of codependence. When there's too much, reliance on an external authority for your needs and wants and survivals, whether that be a partner, whether that be a teacher, a guru, an authority, an outside agency. And not to say that we can't depend. So it's not that you have to be on your own, be super independent. No, it's about the balance and the fact that the foundation of it has to be you first. And then you can seek out gurus, teachers, outside agencies, and authorities. but never more than your own authority, never more than your own self, never more than the dependence on yourself should you have on something outside of yourself. Now we have the flip side of codependence, which is what we can call too much independence, because too much independence is also an illusion, because life is always going to be interdependent, which we're going to talk more about that at the gift and the city level of it, interdependence. We can also have, with too much independence, somebody that can be a bit of an isolationist, kind of this energy of not really wanting to accept help or support or take advice from other people, even though it could be for their own benefit. It can be this energy of, I don't need anyone. But that type of an energy may also limit you from forming long-lasting, intimate, close relationships, which is what you really desire with this energy. The channel 1949 is the channel of intimacy and connection. So if you have it, you have the energy to want to have intimacy, but if you are preventing yourself from having intimacy because you feel like you have to go the other way, which is be super independent, then you're not using the energy at its higher frequency either. But even when, the shadow of the isolationist may come out, you can still see within these people that they are still doing things in the world with regards to something that they feel they should do to still be accepted, to still have people around them, but yet not too close. To date, but yet not too much. To have friends, but yet not sharing too much. That kind of an energy. And with too much independence, we could even say that you are able to meet your own needs quite well, but yet you're not really sharing or using that ability that you have used to meet your own needs, to meet anybody else's needs besides from yourself. You're not using the sensitivities that you've used for yourself for anybody else except yourself. That kind of makes sense. The idea of sensitivity is to first, when you want to move from codependence, is to be sensitive to your own needs first and have the ability to provide for yourself first. If we go back to that sort of traditional example of the husband and the wife, and the husband having toxic behaviors, when the wife kind of enabling that because she had certain material ties, right? If we look at the way that the roles of women have changed, or the roles of husband and wife has changed in the current day and age, hopefully we are seeing less of that, because if one partner, sorry if you can hear some noises coming from upstairs, we're renovating the house and it may be a little bit noisy. If the woman, in that case the wife, let's say, is able to really make her own money, she could leave the husband who is having toxic behaviors, or at least set certain standards, communicate more, negotiate more, because hey, it's okay if I'm no longer with you, because hey, I don't need your money, I don't need this house, I can make my own money, I can have my own house. So this is the sensitivity of being able to meet your own needs first that will move you up from that level of codependence, if that kind of made sense. So to get to a level of, well, we can say, the shadow of this archetype, we can say it's more of like dependence, and the gift of it, we can say it's more like independence. But when we get to the city, we're going to see it's more about interdependence. It's kind of also a little bit about interdependence right now when we're at the gift even. But the idea is that you have to be independent from others on all levels of your being first in order for interdependence, in order for the real sacrifice to happen. Otherwise, if you're going from, codependence straight away to sacrifice without the sensitivity, then we have the illusion of sacrifice. If you go from dependence to interdependence without independence, then we have an illusion of interdependence. When you really access your sensitivities, opening up your ability to feel on all levels, physical, emotional, energetic, what can happen is that you really start to begin to feel into your environment. When you come in the presence of another person, you can feel into their auric fields. When you go out, you can feel that bird, that dog on the street. And because this root, this 19 in the root, is connected to the 49 in the solar plexus, the emotional center, if you have the whole channel, usually you may be a little bit emotionally impulsive, meaning that it may make you cry easily. Your sensitivities may make you cry, like you may see that poor dog on the street and you may start to cry. But if you don't have the 49, what I feel tends to happen is that there will be less of a reaction. The 49 is about reaction. The shadow of the 49 is reaction. So there can be less reaction that comes out. But there'll be more feeling of the sensitivity and the need to do something about it. But when you have the whole channel, it's more of like sensitivity, feeling, reaction, crying, whatever it is that you need to do, and then doing something about it. So it's kind of like that type of an energy. When you're in touch with your sensitivities, you can begin to see the world in a completely different way from other people. You see a different world that other people may not be able to see. You see the world in terms of energy fluctuations, intense colors, moods, pressures. Like for example, going out for a walk in nature, most people may see it as, oh, it's a forest, beautiful trees and flowers, but you see it from something that the eye cannot see. You see the colors with your heart. You hear the sounds of the animals with your eyes, for example. It's like all your senses meshed and they crisscross over into each other. So we can see people who have this becoming healers, energy healers, and sometimes fantasy artists, because they're able to access those other realms. They can access the realms of magic. Shamans may have this type of an energy with them because they travel between realms in one way or another. So there's a lot of talk with regards to this archetype about the great change that's coming in the future, about the future human being. So therefore we can say that the great change that's coming, the transformation in humanity, the actual physical body of humanity, starts from this movement from emotional dependence to emotional independence to emotional interdependence. And the 49 kind of has an opposite movement. I feel the 49 tends to be more of that emotional independence, going from emotional dependence, going from emotional interdependence, and then we have that channel going there. When you access sensitivity, you may have changes in your dream life. Your dreams will be so vivid, they give you access to a whole other dimension. Your sensitivity allows your actual DNA and your genes to hit a certain level of frequency that enables you to hear messages of the fairies, the spirits, the angels even. And this particular archetype will in the future, as written by Richard Rudd, enable humans and animals to coexist together again, because this particular archetype evolved from humanity's relationship to food. So the basic needs, this is a gate of wanting, our needs and things like that, is food. And the 27 also has a similar energy to this one, I feel. Think about how we killed animals for food, to be able to be sensitive enough to sort of like feel into animals and even communicate with animals once again with this energy is what in the future will enable us to coexist harmoniously with animals. And with regards to the future function of this archetype, of this gene key, we can say that it would be this energy where once you access it, enables the magical realms and the material plane to fuse and to exist together. So let's turn this archetype up to the city level and see what that city of sacrifice is really all about. So the city of sacrifice means that you are able to offer your unconditional love to the other. And in order to do so, I would look at this archetype as having this energy of needing to be able to embrace the inner beloved inside of yourself first. And with regards to, the shamanic rites of initiation, there is a particular step called embracing the inner beloved. And in order to get to that level of embracing the inner beloved, there has to be shadow work done before that. Meaning that you have to love your shadows. You have to look at your relationships in your life, all kinds of relationships, and say to yourself, there was codependence there, whether I was the toxic abuser or whether I was the toxic person who is enabling the abuser and hence feeding this toxic type of a tarantula energy. But now I get a chance to be very sensitive to my needs and move from that dependence to independence to interdependence. Remember, there is no jump. You can't jump from dependence to interdependence without fully understanding independence first. And if you feel like you are the type who's always been very independent and you've never understood dependence, then you're also jumping from independence right away to interdependence, which is also an illusion. Because interdependence means that you understand both dependence and independence. That's when you have interdependence. So you gotta be able to embrace both the dependency and the too much of independence. And I feel like I'm repeating these words over and over again, but I think you get the idea. Richard Rudd says in the Gene Keys with regards to this archetype that with this archetype, you'll be in a state with this city of sacrifice means to be in a state of conscious surrendering your smaller self so you attain the realization of your greater self. Sacrifice leads to rebirth, which is the 49 connected to the 19. And sometimes this is a sacrifice of your identity, a sacrifice of your body, of the separate self. And that can sometimes be frightening because sometimes when you do experience this, it really is much more physical and material than you may think. It can mean that, you really have a lot of energy and you've become from, the shadow to the gift and you have so much energy. Now you want to give that energy to a loved one. And in that, you actually sacrifice a physical part of yourself for them. Like the mother pelican who actually gives her blood to her young. It's very physical in that sense. Sometimes it can mean that, you've got a lot of money with you. You got a lot of time with you. Now you have to move across the globe to be with your partner. You physically are moving. Or you really, you have a lot of money to give. Now you really want to give a gift, a big, gift to a partner. And you really have to, really physically give something away. That is much harder than it may seem when you have this archetype, but that will lead to your rebirth. As our consciousness evolves, so too does our physical body. And of course, you see how our body, the human body, is made quite different from animals, right? It's because we do have a more, we can say, I'm not sure more is the right word, but a higher level of consciousness than animals, although animals have a very, very complex level of consciousness as well. But it's a little bit different with different animals and their different bodies, and humans and our bodies as well. So that's why our consciousness is what evolved us into Homo sapiens as we have currently. But with this, what this gene key does with regards to the future human being is that it continues to raise up our consciousness, so that eventually human beings are sort of mutating into a different physical form altogether. And that's going to be, sometime in the very far future, but we're always evolving, right? We're always continuously growing and changing our form, physical form even. Because the gift of sensitivity with this archetype also means that your DNA is very sensitive to that mutation. Your DNA itself is very sensitive to that mutation. And so if you have this archetype, you are here at the exact time in our species when we are hitting that level of mutation. And of course, I'm saying this all from, having studied the gene keys. Your DNA itself is so sensitive that it's able to siphon, information and messages about the new paradigms of the future into the present day. And Richard Rudd says that one of the traits of the future human being is extreme sensitivity at a level beyond psychic. You will not be able to recognize yourself as being separate from other beings anymore. And I like to look at this energy kind of like, from Star Trek Discovery, when Burnham lands on this planet called Pavo. If you watch that, you know that on Pavo there are these creatures. They're blue. I don't know how to explain it. They're like fibrous beings, yes. And they're everywhere on that planet. They're these fibrous beings. They have no physical form really, but they're wrapped around all the trees, the roots of the trees, and they're all connected to each other. And when you hurt one fiber, all the fibers feel it. All of them get hurt as well. And they kind of work together in that kind of a way, and I'm not very explaining this very well, but you should definitely watch that if you have this archetype and you'll know what I mean. Because this archetype at the city, has an ability to be so connected to Gaia. This is, after all, in the ring of Gaia, connected to the earth. And currently, we as human beings communicate in an auditory way, but with regards to the future human being, there's going to be less of that need to communicate through words or languages, but more of a communication through touch. This is the language of Gaia. It's the interconnective tissues, the fibers that connects all of us to each other. So that's going to be my interpretation of this archetype. If you have this energy, then do comment below. Let us know what your experiences have been. And of course, if you have this energy, don't forget to check out your programming partner, which is going to be Gene Key and Human Design Gate 33. That's the Leo archetype. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below if you haven't. If you're already subscribed, thank you very much for coming along, beautiful souls. And I do readings. All the information is on my website. You can check that out. I currently do, there's various different readings that you can get there, as well as video calls that you can make to ask questions that you feel gain more clarity on and discuss about. So just check out those information. And yeah, that's it, beautiful souls. Have a beautiful day. Bye.